Greetings from Bangkok, Thailand, and welcome to 30 Minutes Promoting Unity and Diversity with Wanayran in Moving Cultures. Women of the world talk and act. Today, International Women's Day, we are here with our guests, embracing solidarity, embracing unity and diversity, and saying no to injustice, saying no to discrimination, saying no to lack of opportunities, saying no to stereotypes, saying no to intolerance. And remember that there is nothing in the world that can stop us to be part of a global family. We are one. So with no more, let's welcome our guest, number 120. The number 205, no 100, 205. She is from the United States. She's a dancer, she's a choreographer, she's a creative person, she's a humanitarian, she's a mathematician, and she has proof that art can touch people's hearts. She has proof that intercultural connections can transform people's way of thinking and the way of connecting. She's been living in China for a while. She's going to tell us a little bit more about her life, her journey, and what she's preparing for 2022. Her name is Elisa Montalbo. Hola, Elisa, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Bien. 非常好. Doing very well. Yes, and happy Women's Day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elisa, for accepting the invitation to be one of our iconic guests for this day. Because as you know, we already been interviewing a lot of change makers and people who is connecting communities and who has understood that their talents are important, not only for changing ourselves, but to help others to reach a better way of living, a better way of thinking, and creating a more peaceful world, global society. And our question number one, Elisa, is who are you?
Yes. So thank you again for inviting me to share today on such an important day, which is Women's Day is really every day, but it's always a good reminder. And so I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois in the United States. And I grew up as the oldest of 3 siblings. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My grandparents on my father's side immigrated from Puerto Rico to the United States. And from my mother's side, they come from Italy and Czechoslovakia. So I grew up in a very diverse Latin American, European household with lots of music, lots of art, a focus on education, and great support for both academic and art development. And so I started dancing when I was 4 years old. And I grew up learning many different dance styles from ballet, jazz, tap, contemporary, hip hop, classic modern dance. And during my academic career, in majoring in mathematics and economics at the University of Chicago, I was also able to balance that with performing and choreographing in Chicago. So many different kinds of skills all merged, different kinds of cultures all merged in a very colorful upbringing.
Elisa, I know that from very, very early time of your life, you were touring and participating in competitions, dance competitions. I think it's important to talk about this specific aspect of your life because that requires a lot of strength and a lot of mental stamina. So can you tell us your experiences on that field?
Yes, so well, even I'll take one step back. The very first performance I had when I was 4 years old, I fell on stage. In the middle of the stage, little 4-year-old wearing a feathered, little ducklings ballet number, and I completely wiped out in the middle. But there was no hesitation. My mom always tells the story that I just immediately stood back up and kept going. I didn't cry, I wasn't upset. It was just something that was part of the process. And so
Mhm.
I think that that story and that first experience of performing, of, you know, you fall in front of a huge audience and you get right back up again, is kind of a set the stage for what the dance and professional career, but also life, will throw our way. So when you get into competitions and you get into auditioning, you really have you're very vulnerable. You have to put yourself out in front of strangers to showcase your best skills. And you have no control over what judgment they will make, who will win the awards. But at the end of the day, you just have to go out and you have to showcase your best talents. And sometimes you're feeling sick, sometimes your body's uncomfortable. And you just do what you love in the best of your capacity. And with that pressure, it teaches you to be able to manage your fears, your nervousness, and just let that go to do your best work. And also, regardless of the result, you learn, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but no matter what, you keep going.
Elisa, I think from early childhood, you understood the power of your person, not as an asset. I think you were very clear from an early stage of your life, because I know you, and I don't think that has changed. You know, you really transmit a lot of energy and a lot of power, and I think you are very determined to make yourself work and make yourself be worthless and worthful, for to be necessary for you and for other people. Let's talk about a story you told me some time back about expectations on the field of dance from professors or from the environment, about the physical experience, because it's not about physical body, it's about physical experience. And now that we're talking about breaking bias and rompiendo prejuicios in Spanish and letting people understand what is it that is important to us. Can you elaborate a little bit about that story?
Yeah, so I think I know which story you're talking about. And I think I've experienced this in both my art and in my academic setting, but I'll talk about the dance first. So when actually there was a moment when I was winning competitions, I was auditioning and being successful in winning scholarships. And then one year I went into the next age group to audition, and the audition started with ballet. I got cut right away. And as a young dancer, I was devastated because it's like, why didn't I get it? But that's what motivated me to start training more seriously in ballet. And so from that, I studied with a very serious training studio and program where a lot of the dancers, they're mostly homeschooled. They come from families of dancers who are all quite thin, and they're on the track to be a professional ballet dancer. That's their one track mind. So the training was phenomenal. But for me, I went and to train there because I knew how important that training would benefit my other art forms, because I love jazz and I love tap, but you need, and contemporary dance, but you need the ballet base in order to do that well. So in that space, I was often a black sheep. I had very strong leg muscles. I wasn't the typical ballet body, and I was not there to be a ballerina. But I was often surrounded by young girls and young women with strong eating disorders, with very just an intensity that sometimes was quite unhealthy, but also had teachers who told me that I will never have a career in dance, and that I shouldn't eat watermelon in the breaks. And there were so many destructive moments in that. But for me, I was always so clear that I was there not to be like anyone else. I was there because I knew how that training would benefit what my goals were. And so, you know, of course, as a young girl, it's like, oh, okay, you know, but you just kind of let it pass over you. And stay focused on your goal. And so to those teachers who told me I will never have a career in dance, you know, I think they can see what I'm doing now. So I think taking action and doing your best work is the best way to prove people wrong. But at the end of the day, there's also nothing to prove. You just have to do what you do best. And it's more about your own path and your own journey, not about other people's expectations of you. And another story was actually in the mathematics. I was almost always the only girl in all of my math classes. And even though I had, actually the story is quite relevant for Women's Day, there was a moment where I had a summer where I had already completed Algebra 1 course from the summer from 6th to 7th grade. I had taken the exam, I knew the material, but the teacher teaching the more advanced course did not want to admit me in the class because it was only him and 2 boys. And even though I had passed all the exams, he said, oh no, she cannot join. She has to take this class again. And so my mother, who was actually pregnant with my sister at the time, goes into the office and calls the teacher out for being sexist and saying,
exactly.
you know, Elisa knows this material. You've seen her exam. She's passed. She knows the material. Now you better tell me what the real reason is here. And so anyways, at the end of the day, I was able to continue with my studies in the higher level math classes. But I think also for young girls in science and if they do not succeed, they're told, oh, you're not good at that. If boys are told, if they mess up on a test, they're like, oh, just try again. So I think there's also an imbalance in that field as well.
It's wonderful to hear how your mother was standing up for you. And I think this is the message we have to deliver to society, that if you see injustice, you have to stand up, you have to speak out, you have to be there in support, because others at the same time you are supporting you, because you're making the society better for everybody. Elisa, let's talk about your experiences moving from one society to the next. But before that, let's put some of the images we have to talk about your career and how you always have focused on determining yourself into achievement. Yeah, that's very important as well. Okay, so this is our conversation photo. Okay, Elisa, can you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the photos? Okay,
yes.
let's start with this experience. You can be narrating to us what was happening here.
Yeah, so in 2009, I had the honor and the joy of being one of the assistant choreographers for a collaboration with the Black Eyed Peas and with Oprah for her 24th season premiere. And what it was a flash mob with over 20,000 people to surprise Oprah for this grand opening of this new season. And so the structure was such that Oprah had invited the community. I'm from Chicago. Oprah had her show there. So she shut down Michigan Avenue and it was open to the public. And I worked with...
Stay here.
Yes, and so it was an incredible feat because most of the people who showed up on that day had no idea they were going to be a part of such an experience. And so working with a small group of assistant choreographers, we first taught a group of 500, and then those 500
these
taught,
ones?
Yes. And then that group, we kind of implanted them throughout the crowd to help us teach 20,000 people on the day. So when regular people arrived, old, young, Black, white, fat, skinny, Latino, Asian, no matter, it was just a celebration of humanity, everyone gathering to enjoy music. There was a concert as part of this event that Oprah was hosting for her premiere. And
here you are in red.
Yes, we're getting ready for the big epic. Yeah. So
Elisa, before you continue, this is the girl in blue that Oprah was talking about when she was watching you all dancing, and she said, I just noticed there was a girl in blue, but she didn't have any clue that the flash mob was taking place.
yeah, so it was very cool because you know, in 2009, the Black Eyed Peas are one of the hottest, you know, musician bands of the year. And so, you know, she invited the best of the best, and they start to play I Got a Feeling, their top song at the time, and no one is moving. No one's even singing along. Everyone is just still. So it's quite a strange feeling, I'm sure, for her to see 20,000 people not have any reaction to the world's biggest pop stars at the time. And so then it started from one person, and then I joined with a few, and it branched out, and over 2 blocks in downtown Chicago, everyone started dancing together. And
fantastic.
I still
what a
get
great experience. Elisa, you also have the opportunity to dance for very important or well-known artists in the US. How was that experience, and how did you manage? Let me stop this one here and then we continue. How was your experience working and dancing with Beyonce, for example? You can mention some others, yeah?
Yeah, so actually, it was 2011. So 11 years ago, time really flies. I was actually about to graduate from the University of Chicago, and I was applying for business school. I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do of, you know, am I going to go in the kind of mathematics and finance and career, or I'm going to follow my art, but I also don't want to be a starving artist. And so how can I? So I was at that point in my life. And again, actually for Oprah, she had her finale, her grand finale season spectacular. And it was a final episode for her entire show. And there was an audition for Beyonce, and I booked the gig, and I had the honor of performing alongside Beyonce for, very fitting for today, Who Runs the World.
Oh, okay.
And so it and that was in the midst of waiting for results for business school and 1 month away from graduation, and it was this whole whirlwind. But for me, that experience was really, it was a moment of clarity for me, because I was at a point where I was figuring out, okay, about to graduate, I need my art. I don't want to be a starving artist. I also enjoy statistical work and mathematical modeling and all these other totally different things. And first of all, the rehearsal process was incredible. I mean, she, you know, if anyone can be called a diva, she's a diva, but she wasn't this attitude. She had great respect for the dancers. At one point, she even asked me a question about what a prop, you know, what count a prop should be passed along on and stuff like that. So she was really, in a short period of time, she knew exactly her vision. And even the whole process of getting our costumes and fittings and everything like that. Even her mom was backstage helping to sew my skirt onto my body at the last minute, because, you know, there are many women involved, and but it was a family endeavor at the same time. Her mom was present, even helping with the costumes backstage. So it was really cool to see that no matter, you know, how high you get up in you know, in fame or in whatever it is in the society, you know, they still have their moms next to them, you know, they still have.
I think you get it to a point that is really important to highlight, Elisa, that there is nothing like reaching. It's not like a higher point. There is a position of excellence and the results of hard work. And that has an answer of recognition, but it's not about not understanding who's the person next to you, or acknowledging people next to you, or being so mature to respond to messages, or to be able to communicate with people. It's not like a position, and this is probably what the media has created for people in the business, that they call them stars, unreachable.
Exactly.
Just giving those kind of names doesn't give you the opportunity to really understand the power of your talent to transform communities. And we know that it's a lot of artists, including Beyonce, who have understood how they can transform the way of living of a lot of people with their behavior. You can destroy people or you can construct people. Let's get back to the images.
It's a responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big responsibility. So this is the time you were in Chicago.
Yeah.
And right, we can see the whole aura. Okay, let's talk about, so you saying you can dance China, and how did you decided to move to China, Elisa?
Yeah, so I had actually, before I moved to China, I had actually not thought that much about China, to be totally honest. I learned French in school growing up, so I always imagined that I would go to a French-speaking country first to use my French, or unfortunately, my Spanish is not where I wish it was. From when I was little, I could speak much more, but I got an invitation to come to China for 6 months to tour and perform and choreograph. And it was on a whim. I came with someone who had previously been. And so I said, okay, it must be worth, if it's worth for them to go back, let me give it a shot. I never thought much about it, but let's try. I want to go abroad, but I never thought China. And so in the first period I was here, actually, there were many ups and downs, and I came with a really open mind. I didn't have any expectations of what it should be, or what the food should taste, or what the city would look like, because I didn't know much, to be honest. And so I think even when I first came, I just said, okay, I'm going to be here for 6 months. I want to learn and experience as much as I can. And I think that open-mindedness helped me launch in a way that would have been different if I had all these expectations of what it should be. Because I was able to really take it in for what it was versus what I imagined it would be. And so after being here for about 6 months, was actually 5 months, I'm getting ready to get my plane ticket to go home back to the United States. And I got a phone call. I got an offer to choreograph for the auditions for the first season of So You Think You Can Dance China. And so originally I was invited to choreograph a contemporary jazz partnering piece for the auditions. And they said, okay, that's it. I said, wow, that's such a huge honor. But over the course of the time, the producers, the cameramen, the dancer women, the dancers, they, I think, not only liked my choreography, but they also liked how I worked with the dancers. And so I actually got asked back for the next round, and the next round, and the next round, and eventually had the honor to choreograph for the main season or main episodes of the show. And so that was an experience that completely changed my life. I was working with an entirely local team. I was one of very few, there were a couple other foreign choreographers, but all of the dancers, all of the staff, all the producers, 99% of people involved were Chinese. And at the time I spoke no Mandarin. I had an interpreter, but it was challenging. But at the same time, I could also start to see and understand the universal, how dance is such a universal language that really transcends spoken language. Obviously, if you can communicate in someone's first language, you can get in a deeper, more conceptual level, but in a really basic human way. Dance and art, you don't need language. You can be from completely different parts of the world and still create something beautiful.
And
So
connect.
anyway.
And this is what we're talking about, that your love for art, for music, for people, for cultures, gave us the opportunity to meet in one of our dance therapy workshops in the Faraya Cancer Support Trust in Nairobi. And thanks to this beautiful experience, we met for a very short time, but it was a very deep connection. We had the opportunity, this is in China again, in the Philippines, right?
Yes.
Like you traveling around the world. Then you were one of our top international guest artists for Dance Peace Festival in Nairobi. And Elisa, we still so thankful to you for your love, for your commitment, for your time. It was a very intense week. It was lots of activities, lots of classes, lots of people, lots of places, but you were always with a big smile, with a big heart, teaching people, meeting people. They still remember you very much, and every time I have the opportunity to connect with them, they always ask about you. So here we are with the different dancers from Nairobi, where you visiting the Kibera slums, one of the biggest ones in Kenya and also in Africa. And here are your co-partner dancers from the festival. And of course, in Amboseli with the Maasai.
Necessary.
And with the Changilia kids, who, as you can see in the photo, enjoy very much the tap dance workshop. And now we're back to Asia. What was happening here, Elisa?
So this was for the 2017 Shanghai Tourism Festival. So every year, Shanghai has a big festival where they invite people from all around the world to exchange culture. And so I was working with Shanghai Disney as the main head choreographer at the time. And so Shanghai Disney had just opened the year before, and we were also invited to be a part of this parade and this festival. So I choreographed a production number and adapted, it was from one of our castle shows, and to share with all the people in Shanghai and in China and all of the other guests from across the world.
Before we continue with Disney Shanghai, let's talk about this amazing experience you had in Mongolia. How was it, Elisa?
It's hard to even put words to sometimes.
It was a very mystical experience for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so actually from So You Think You Can Dance, I choreographed a piece on a man from Inner Mongolia and a woman from Xinjiang, so two minority, Chinese minority places and cultures here. And I choreographed a jazz piece on them. And so from that evolved a beautiful friendship where I've been invited to their hometown in Inner Mongolia. And so the first time I went was in 2014, and I was invited to experience the Grasslands of Inner Mongolia, which is a sacred space for Mongolian people. And where it's like, the blue sky, the green grass, the horses, the sheep are all very spiritual. And we experienced this not as a tourist, but I visited with friends who grew up in Inner Mongolia and with their family and with their classmates and best friends that they've known since they were 7 and 8 years old. So it was a very humbling experience to be invited into such a sacred space and experience something that even most Chinese people have never had access to or been invited into that space in that way. And I think that maybe in a previous life I was from Inner Mongolia, because I felt a very deep connection to the place and also to the culture and to the people. And every time I go, it's really hard to leave. So,
Elisa, but once again, this is related to your capacity to love. You know, there is enormous, you know, and I don't say it just because I know you, it's a reality. People can understand and feel that, and that open doors. And this is the reason why you were also hired by Disney Shanghai, you know, for your spirit, and also, of course, for your great talent as a choreographer, but more this photo for me represents you. You know, it's like that happiness and that relaxation, you know, in Disney, who is the icon of diversity. You know, when we're talking about music, art, culture, and entertainment, Disney is that representation. Talk to us about your experience and how do you manage to work in this project?
yeah, so I was actually found here in China by Shanghai Disney, and at the time I was working with a Chinese contemporary dance company, training them in American jazz and tap. And just that day, there was a producer and the casting director from Disney came to talk to my mentor, asking, okay, how should we approach dance in China? Because they understood that, you know, Disney is Disney, but also that China does have some distinct
Different.
ways of managing things. So, and so that day I happened to be teaching tap to a Chinese contemporary dance company. And that's how I got connected. And from there, I worked with the company as an outside consultant for about a year, starting with casting the park. So we traveled all around China, auditioning dancers, musicians, singers, actors, stunt acrobats for the new park. And I also had the opportunity to choreograph for some of the pre-opening events that was really getting ready to launch and create the momentum for this exciting new park. And so I decided in 2015 to join full-time as a member of the opening team to choreograph the parade, and also stay after to continue to create new work for seasonal events. And it's amazing now. The park has been open almost 6 years and it's thriving, and just it's such a beautiful platform to bring joy to people. And so for me, that's something that I really love and appreciate about Disney, and the fact that I've been granted that space to share my art and share my creativity with people who grew up in a completely different place in the world. So I primarily work with Chinese dancers and actors, and we create magic and share the joy for our guests. And even though I've left full-time, a lot of my shows are still active in the park.
Okay, so you're still working for Disney?
I left in late 2019, but the shows I've created outlive me there, like being full-time.
Definitely. So your energy is still moving in Disney Shanghai. Elisa, talk to us about the pandemic. How did that affected your working field? What have you learned from that experience, and what is coming in 2022?
So the pandemic in the very beginning, obviously, was in China at the most scary point. And in the very beginning, there was so much uncertainty, there was so much fear. No one really knew what this virus was. But the good part was that it kind of emerged close to Chinese New Year. And so everyone was already gathering with their families and about to have a holiday. So what turned from a 2-week holiday turned into a 2-month basically quarantine, where I did not go outside. I only went outside, I think I counted 8 times in 50 days. So China in the very beginning took the pandemic very, very seriously. And there were really strict regulations about being able to leave your home. Only like one family member could go get groceries, and outsiders were not allowed into your housing area. It was quite strict. But the blessing from that was after those 2 months of quarantine, basically, like real quarantine, before we really understood what quarantine was.
I think
And
that should be called Muslimly. I don't know, because quarantine, nothing, you know, it was like 2 years practically in lockdown.
yeah, but for the most amazing thing is because of, I think, such strict measures that China took in the beginning, actually, I would say that the country was back to about 80% normal functioning by May. By May of 2020.
Wow.
And so that's what was so remarkable and so different, I think, compared to a lot of places in the world.
Yeah. While China was recovering, people was dying in Italy, and they were massively dying in Spain and in other European countries. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so the strange thing for me is that I feel it's been such a blessing, but I've also been in this kind of bubble, for lack of a better word, where you know, China, we have to wear masks always on public transportation and outside even. Now it's a bit more relaxed, but even still there's tracking, which I know a lot of countries would not accept that. But because they're able to track where you've been, that's actually kept people really safe. And so fortunately, well, actually in 2020, oh my goodness, I'm gonna get my charger. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
I don't want it to drop out. Okay, I just realized it's almost out.
Yeah, we're practically getting close to the end of our interview, Elisa. But it's great, you know, that you have managed to overcome all the anxiety related with the health crisis. And I think that's what we like to hear from you, how mental health problems, anxiety, depression has affected so many people, and how dance has saved a lot of people as well.
Yes, and so I think that's the power of art and of dance. And I feel so fortunate that actually in the midst of the pandemic, originally I was supposed to go to Dubai to choreograph and direct for the 2020 Dubai Expo. However, things were starting to get worse around the world, so I was unable to fly to Dubai. But then that ended up being the best blessing, because I was able to stay in China, where it's been quite safe, and continue to choreograph for new television shows and for other new projects, even in the midst of a global pandemic. So it feels a bit surreal to have been able to continue with my art when actually a lot of the world is suffering. And so, but I just take that and try to use that to continue to share the joy and, you know, with family and friends, and at least they're able to have something to look forward to when I'm, you know, getting ready to share something new that I'm doing, when, you know, maybe they can't go to the office for work, or they can't perform on the stages that they were so excited about. So just trying to always use what I do to bring joy to people and to bring people together.
What message will you give to especially women in this International Women's Day, and then to society regarding inclusion, participation, and diversity?
Yes. So women, there's no comparison. Your journey is your own. And I think it's easy to want to compare yourself to other people and also sit in maybe how things are so unfair. But I think that can get in the way of actually taking action and moving forward in your life and moving the society forward using your gifts. So I think just continuing to stay strong in your mind and in your heart and continue to develop the things that you love to bring people together and to share those gifts with the world.
Elisa, I know that success for you has been preparation, education, and opportunities. And as we always say, success is more for us realization, because you are doing things you love and things that make you wake up every day with optimism and have a good life. And I think that's exactly what we deserve, and we want everybody to understand that it's about connecting with your inner self, understanding exactly what you want to do, and then working hard for it, because talent is 5%, and the result of that talent can get to success and realization with 95% work. Isn't it?
And I would add one more thing to that, actually. I think, having that determined mindset is so important, but also staying open. And I think there's so many opportunities that have come my way that I could never have imagined, I could never have predicted. And I think that if I was so determined that I'm only going to go in this one direction, then these other opportunities, even coming to China, would not have
taken place.
And so I think I would just add that to exactly what you said. There's so much wisdom in what you just mentioned, is having that determinism, having that that grit, that perseverance, but also staying open-minded that there are going to be things that you can never imagine that may come your way. And if it resonates with you, if you feel that there's something that you can learn and that's something that you can also share, be willing to sometimes take that risk, even if you never imagined it.
And let the magic take place. Because sometimes we are so stick to rational behavior that we don't allow the creative part of ourselves also be powerful enough to make a holistic person. And I think that that's the idea, that you can learn, educate yourself, keep dreaming, and work hard for those dreams. Elisa, once again, I send you a solidarity embrace. I love you a lot, and looking forward to see you in the near future. Wonderful Women's Day, month, year, life. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your love for humanity with us. Thank you, Elisa.
Yay.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.